Hello, it's Carol Peterson, and I have Jeff Bowles with me. Hello, Jeff. I will just do a little short bio for the audience. Jeff T. Bowles is a best-selling author known for his work on vitamin D3 and its health effects, particularly in relationship to cancer and chronic diseases. Drawing on 25 years of private research and self-experimentation, he promotes the use of very high doses of vitamin D3 combined with cofactors like vitamin K2 and magnesium to prevent and even cure diseases that many doctors overlook. His notable books include The Miraculous Results of Extremely High Doses of the Sunshine Hormone, vitamin D3, and its sequel, which synthesized scientific evidence, case studies, and evolutionary logic to present new perspectives on aging, hormone regulation, disease prevention. Bowles' work extends into other health-related topics such as melatonin, hyaluronic acid decline, and hormones' influence on aging. His approach emphasizes natural health solutions grounded in evidence and extensive self-study. So you agree with that?
That sounds reasonable.
That sounds pretty reasonable. Anything to add, Jeff?
Well, it's a kind of a weird hobby of mine. I just like to gather facts on PubMed about different diseases and see if I could find a cure for them. And one of my recent books is, I think I found a cure or a treatment for ALS, which will relate to our magnesium discussion today. And then I just wrote my most recent book is about cancer. I think I also found a cure for cancer that requires no surgery, chemo, radiation, or drugs. So, and I tested it in a rat and it worked. And I sent you the video on that, but
and no into human studies.
So we need some human guinea pigs. I think I've got one right already. But so basically I'm just a guy who likes to do medical jigsaw puzzles. It's basically.
Yeah, it's like a murder mystery.
Yeah, I just can't stop it.
It just can't, it doesn't quit, and you find another string to pull. So you still
there's really no more diseases left, I think.
Yeah, you're done now. Okay, so
a new one.
Yeah, so you sent me the magnesium chapter on a book you wrote that I haven't mentioned yet. It's The Miraculous Cure for and Prevention for All Diseases. So
what doctors never learned.
Yeah, what doctors never learned. Of course they don't. Yeah, they don't cover this in medical school. In fact, it's always curious to me. You go to college and they require all these pre-medical school or professional medical background like I have in pharmacy. They require biochemistry and they require physiology and all sorts of things. And as soon as you hit the school, you're supposed to leave that all behind because they figured out what's a disease and what drug to use for it.
Right, and they brainwash the med students. That I told this one med student I was playing poker with recently. I said, "Yeah, I think I found a cure for cancer." He's like, "Oh yeah, right. What is it?" I said, "Well, it's 3 things: dehydration, an all-fat diet, and high dose vitamin D3." And he says,
"Which cofactors?"
Yeah. I said, "How much D3?" I said, 50,000 a day. You got to get your blood levels up to like 150 nanograms per milliliter. That's toxic. So that's what they're teaching the med school students. And actually, that's the level you need to cure autoimmune diseases. And it seems to work in cancer too.
So
big pharma is behind that. Trust me.
Yeah, of course I trust you. So you and I had been talking about your book about ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's, which you zeroed in on magnesium being quite a problem. And then you sent me this chapter from your other book. I'm not sure what provoked you, but let me just share with you what happened to me. You already scared me with the first book that I didn't have enough magnesium, so I just started taking more. But then all of a sudden, I started having swollen legs and ankles. And there it is right on your list. When sitting for long periods of time, which I do at my computer, and I'm looking for stuff like what's gone wrong with my lymphatic drainage. I went and had some tests to see if my liver, kidneys, cardiovascular system. Probably had one of the best test results of my whole life, except for some inflammation. And then I come across your chapter and I go, holy smokes, I'm still not taking enough magnesium.
That's weird. I found that symptom. I'd never heard that anywhere else. I'm the only one that put that in my book. It's probably not listed anywhere else in the world. But the way I found out about it is my ex-girlfriend's daughter, we still stay in touch, but she has a health issue. She emailed me. She said, do you have any ideas what could this be? And when I sit at my desk, my ankles and my legs swell up. And then I said, well, do you have any other symptoms? She says, well, I have muscle cramps and I've got sometimes I'm a little dizzy. I said, oh, turns out that must be another magnesium deficiency symptom. So I've never heard of that one before, but that's where it came from. That's the only place it came from. But she started taking magnesium and the problem was solved.
Yeah, mine's going down, almost gone. Definitely using more magnesium. So I hope that finishes the problem. It should still take higher doses. But
yeah,
you do recommend, you do have to spread out the dosing so you don't get diarrhea, or you have suggested to use sustained release magnesium products in your book so you don't dump so much magnesium at one time and then you get kind of watery diarrhea from it.
Yeah, your body can only absorb so much at a time, so it's good to have a lower dose in your system all day long and it have it in your blood all day long. Everyone thinks, oh, I could just pop a magnesium pill every day and that'll take care of it. No, you only absorb a little bit and then the rest goes out with your waste products. So to reverse a magnesium deficiency takes like a whole year of just having that magnesium in your blood all day long. It's very difficult to reverse. It takes a lifetime to achieve. It takes at least a year to really fix it.
So in your earlier book about vitamin D, you hadn't come across the magnesium piece yet, I think.
Well, I mentioned it. There were some references to it that you should take magnesium, but I really hadn't cracked that onion open and really researched it, and then until my second book, and then I realized, oh, I would hear, some people getting bad effects from high dose D3, like right away, like insomnia or dizziness or panic attacks. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't really know what was going on. Or irritability is another one.
Yeah, I got cramps when I started using. I was using like 100,000 every day.
Yeah. So then I realized what most of the immediate symptoms you get from high dose D3 that doctors call vitamin D toxicity is actually magnesium deficiency symptoms. And there's like a 3-page list in my book. The common ones are dizziness, constipation, panic attacks, heart rhythm abnormalities, blood pressure changes, and those are the main ones. So, but if you get those right away with high dose D3, you've uncovered your magnesium deficiency.
Okay, so atrial fibrillation is actually quite common. Would you say magnesium and vitamin D are probably at the...
Oh, yeah. So if you take D3 without magnesium, it can trigger like heart rhythm abnormalities. That's because it's eating up the magnesium really fast. And then they did a study where people with heart rhythm irregularities, maybe I think it was A-fib, they gave them like a whole bunch of magnesium and like 83% of them got better like right away. But when instead of giving that, the doctors like to kill off the nerve that they call a nerve ablation in your heart, where they kill some nerves to get the heart to stop beating so fast. And then they give you blood thinners so that you don't get blood clots instead of just giving you magnesium. So they're making money that way.
Yeah, it's very pathetic. So one of the things that strikes me, and it's because I often recommend some high doses of progesterone to women. They have sort of a hormone mess going on. Progesterone is very helpful. but the doses can be higher. I use as my guide Dr. Katarina Dalton's work, 400, 600 milligrams suppositories, maybe multiple times per day, but other doses of progesterone, and I know it to work. But if I recommend high doses of progesterone, I could be depleting magnesium. And maybe it's the magnesium shortage that's the problem in the first place. I double checked this. Said you need magnesium to make progesterone in the first place. So some of the symptoms you wrote down, like PMS and hormone disturbances, sounded to me like progesterone was the key. But underlying that still, I bet it's magnesium, magnesium, magnesium. What do you think?
I did not know that. I did not know your progesterone issues mirrored the magnesium, but that certainly could be all these things are associated. I think like vitamin D3 and magnesium together when they're deficient, that's probably the combo that causes type 2 diabetes. And, everyone looks at one thing at a time, but you have to look at the whole package. Like vitamin D3 has 5 cofactors, and who knows how progesterone interacts with all those. You probably know better than I do, but I'm sure there's correlation.
So Michael Platt wrote a book about adrenaline dominance. When you're in this constant flight and fright, anxious state, and sometimes for decades, or sometimes even as children, calling it ADD, ADHD, they have so much tension. So I'm wondering if being in this sympathetic dominant state continuously makes you just burn through magnesium.
That's possible. Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, in my books, I mentioned, I've found evidence and mentioned that as a vitamin D3 deficiency symptom, that's correlated, or that is ADD is one of them. But then I saw the list of magnesium deficiency symptoms, and hyperexcitability and constant motion, like hyperactivity. So I think it's a double symptom. It's a double deficiency. Either one or both, maybe it takes both deficiencies in both to cause it, or a deficiency in one or the other. But I think they work together so closely that, as a kid, I was a textbook case. I had ADD, asthma, allergies, hives, all sorts of everything that was D3 deficiency related. So I always yell at my mother, D3 deficient.
She couldn't diagnose you.
No.
So this hyper adrenaline state is sometimes very difficult to manage. People don't methylate well to tone it down. And where I was saying, so magnesium and in higher doses can be a big benefit. So I've been recommending, mostly from reading your book, to use magnesium 1,000 milligrams of elemental magnesium per day.
Yeah, I just take that as a maintenance dose, 500 milligrams twice a day of the extended release. And in the year that I was trying to reverse my magnesium deficiency, because I had a frozen shoulder for a while, I didn't know how to get rid of it. And I finally read something on the internet that you can't get rid of a frozen shoulder unless you take magnesium. And that's gone now. But I didn't realize I was magnesium deficient until I read that. And then I took got up to the point where I was taking 750 milligrams twice a day. And then by the 8th month and by the 9th month, I started, I'm going to take 1,000 milligrams twice a day. Mm-hmm. And I got up to that for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden my heart started to feel funny, like a sinking feeling. And I looked that up, and that's like a symptom of too much magnesium. And so I said, oh, I must have filled my tank. And so I dropped it down to 500 milligrams a day, 2 times a day. And then that heart sinking feeling went away, and I've been fine ever since.
So that's a continuous dose for you. That sounds it really sounds pretty reasonable. I remember going to a conference once, because you do have osteoporosis in there as well. And the speaker, I would say there were 200 people in the room. And we're always talking about calcium for osteoporosis. But this speaker said the ratio of magnesium to calcium should be 4-1. Back in those days, it was usually considered 1-1 or 2-1 calcium to magnesium. The whole room gasped when he said that. And
well, that makes sense because, well, I mean, you're 60% of your magnesium is in your bones. And then you need, if you get too much calcium in your blood and your cells, it competes with the magnesium and crowds out in your mitochondria. And so it lowers the amount of magnesium that your cells are using to make energy. So you really need a lot of magnesium. You can't make a single molecule of ATP, which is our energy currency, without magnesium. Every molecule of MTP has to, or ATP has to bind to magnesium or you can't make it. And your body makes 120 pounds of ATP every day. That's our energy. And it's recycled so much that we make 120 pounds. And each one of those ATP molecules requires a magnesium, not a calcium.
so it's like pandemic, this lack of energy everybody's complaining about. So
Oh, yeah.
energy molecules just can't be made if there's not enough magnesium.
Right. That's a big sign of magnesium deficiency is severe fatigue. And it turns out they estimate like 80% of us are magnesium deficient, maybe even 88%, because the dietary recommendations are way too low. And due to soil depletion of magnesium over the years, our foods since like the 1900s, the magnesium content of all our foods, from vegetables to meat to cheese, have dropped like at least by 50%, in many cases even more.
Yeah, you have your chart in your chapter of the various foods and the percentage difference and
yeah, like
two different.
The worst one is collard greens has dropped by 83%. So yeah, but I don't eat those too often. So
yeah.
So you can't get enough magnesium from the modern diet. Everyone should realize that. Everyone really has to supplement with magnesium, or you're going to get something. And my book title was The Miraculous Cure for and Prevention of All Diseases, What Doctors Never Learned. And I had noted D3 deficiency probably causes about 75% of all diseases, like all autoimmune diseases and some cancers, most cancers. And then I attributed probably 20% of the other diseases are caused by magnesium deficiency, and then maybe 5% by vitamin K2 deficiency. And it turns out that I ignored the diseases of aging. And so I never put ALS, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's disease into any category. So my book title is misleading in the fact that I didn't have all diseases listed. But since I wrote that ALS book, turns out that ALS is caused by magnesium deficiency. And then it turns out that Parkinson's disease is very likely caused by magnesium deficiency in certain neurons in your brain. And then it turns out all Alzheimer's brains are magnesium deficiency. When they are magnesium deficient, when they dissect them after death, they're usually like, they only have 65% of the magnesium needed. Your nerves need magnesium to work well.
So Alzheimer's is also called type 3 diabetes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So insulin glucose dysregulation. I'm also seeing this. Dr. Ben Bickman's written a book, Why We Get Sick, and he studies insulin. And he's saying 88% of the population has insulin resistance in some degree. And I'm seeing it as a predominant feature of people I do consultations with. It's almost always there. I see a rare individual, pretty clear, but most of the time it's there, and it may be substantial. And so my order of hormones really is insulin glucose top, and then adrenal, and then thyroid, and then sex hormones. If you don't take care of that insulin glucose piece, you're not going to have any success. So where does magnesium play with insulin and glucose?
Yeah, we looked into that earlier, but for our last podcast.
Mhm.
So thank you for that softball.
Hey.
Yeah, so the apparently, I mean, I believe that aging is programmed. A lot of this is programmed, but I possibly magnesium deficiency is part of the aging program because as we get older, we absorb less magnesium. But magnesium is crucial for like 300 different enzymatic functions, not just making all your energy, but also powering different enzymes, cellular receptors. And the first step towards type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. And that occurs when you're magnesium deficient because
Absolutely.
your insulin receptors need a lot of magnesium to work. So that's step one towards type 2 diabetes.
Yep.
And then it progresses to the point, then eventually you start cranking out extra insulin to make up for the low receptor sensitivity. And then eventually those insulin producing cells, they self-destruct when they don't have enough magnesium. And it turns out GABA, you need serum GABA in your blood it turns out that declines with age, and that leads to the destruction of your pancreatic insulin making cells. So both magnesium and GABA decline.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks for that, Pearl. I'm writing something, trying to collect as many pieces of information I can about how to get insulin to be more sensitive, and it's
oh yeah, GABA is like they're putting GABA in various formulations for diabetics, even for kids, because you need GABA. It's gamma amino butyric acid, but it's in your brain. It's a calming signal, and then
Mhm.
glutamate is the opposite. That's the excitatory signal, and it's kind of a yin and yang type thing. And so, but in your body, GABA is used for various signaling functions. Most scientists only focus on brain and in your nerves, but GABA is required for your pancreas to make properly functioning insulin secreting cells.
That's
And
very
all,
it-
oh, and also GABA decline is also associated with Alzheimer's and cancer. And it turns out GABA, I think, is also involved in suppressing certain genes in all your cells that are actually involved in brain development when you're a child. So all your cells have all these genes. I studied Horvath's aging genes and came up with this exciting insight. Most, yeah, most somatic cancers are probably caused by serum GABA declining, and your cells no longer suppress these genes that are involved in a developing brain. And then it causes cells in your body to start dividing. I mean, that's one way to look at it. There's a bunch of different ways. But from a program point of view, as you get older, like some of your somatic cells are starting to think they're brain cells in embryos, and they start dividing again because they lose this suppression by this one gene called REST1. I think it's just called REST, and I believe GABA is involved in keeping that REST gene active. When that goes down, then you quit suppressing. Yeah, it's complicated. Maybe it's a topic for another discussion. Didn't mean
I I came across this thing about the GABA receptor. It has supposedly about 40 places where things can dock. And there's a place for magnesium, there's a place for GABA, there's a place for progesterone via allopregnanolone. The benzos have a different place. Quite astonishing to me. I
Well,
don't know if that's true or not, but
well, interestingly, all these things seem to be calming. Like if they give people GABA at night and it's supposed to help them sleep.
yeah.
Magnesium is also calming. So it's like the opposite of the exciting hormones or molecules like glutamate or, adrenaline, blah, blah, blah. So it's just, you can see patterns. Those are like puzzle pieces that all have the same color.
Okay, so we don't have a good way to measure magnesium. Almost every client I do any coaching with or a consultation, longer consultation, they have some blood work done. they always measure magnesium in the serum.
That's stupid. The doctors had no idea what they're doing.
It's always fine.
Yeah, I've got these people. There's a Facebook group called ALS Breakthrough. A lot of people are taking high doses of magnesium and actually seeing their ALS symptoms start to reverse, which never happens almost. And they go to their doctors and they try to get a prescription so that they can get a magnesium IV, like 3 grams 3 times a week to really boost their magnesium replenishment. They give them a blood test. They said, no, I can't do it. I can't give you that. I can't give you that prescription because your magnesium is okay.
Oh my God.
Oh, you idiot. And then they have to figure out like some backdoor channel to get their magnesium. So I taught them how to use a syringe, a plastic bag, and mix it. I told the doctors that, oh yeah, we're just getting the patients that they'd mix magnesium pills in a plastic bag and poke a syringe through it and then stick it in their arm. He goes, oh my God, are they getting sepsis? I said, no.
No, is that a Myers cocktail?
I don't know what that is.
Myers cocktail is large.
Work like out in the battlefield,
Yeah, it's a large dose of magnesium chloride, I believe, and it's got B complex vitamins. You can throw in a couple extra things, but the 2 major things are B complex and magnesium. And it's an amazing IV. It's IV push. This is kind of interesting because they found if you were to do magnesium in a push fashion where you get very local high concentration rather than a slower drip, it actually works better. Yeah, I mean, these ALS patients, they're doing pretty well taking 1,000 milligrams of magnesium throughout the day, along with some progesterone. But it turns out you can only absorb so much through your intestines. And then if you really want to push it higher, you have to do an IV. But it's dangerous. If you do it by yourself, your heart could stop. So you need someone there to watch you if you're doing it. Right? Yeah, people who do a Myers cocktail, when they push it, they start feeling uncomfortable and they turn all red, hot. Yeah, that's a sign of too much magnesium. That's when you need to. Too much or too fast for them. The first symptom is they can test the knee reflexes with the rubber hammer. Once that starts to slow, it's time to probably quit. Oh, that's your Achilles tendon. That's what you take this for your thyroid, right? The knee where the doctor hits your the knee with the rubber hammer. Yeah. And it twitches. Is that Achilles? I thought that. Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was. I just know my dad used to do that as a doctor. And I think they do it just to impress people. Like, oh, that's amazing. You must know a lot of things. I should trust you. You got the magic hammer. So yeah, because old doctors used to always, let me test your reflexes. I mean, there's no reason to do that unless you're just trying to make them think you're a witch doctor. It's actually a thyroid sign. If it's normal, your leg whips right out and back again very quickly. If it does it sluggishly, your metabolic rate is down. Oh, maybe it does have some good info. I always thought it was just for show. Yeah. I don't think they do it so often anymore. Hardly get any kind of physical exam. No. When I was little, my dad used to have a black bag at the house. He would make house calls once in a while. He had a little rubber hammer in there. I used to always play with this stuff, injecting the cats. No, okay. I want to jump over to B5 because you added it to your things that you should be taking along with vitamin D. But B5, pantothenic acid, is very interesting. It turns into coenzyme A. And then if you match it up with choline, like from phosphatidylcholine, then you get acetylcholine. It's the major neurotransmitter with your vagus nerve, rest and relax. And then coenzyme A is a precursor for you making cholesterol successfully. And I've had clients who have had really low cholesterol levels, and I gave them an article. It was about how to cure acne with B5 in doses like 5-gram doses. So I wonder if there's a thread to pull here. Well, all the B vitamins apparently have
Well, definitely vitamin B2 and B3 are like crucial for your electron transport chain in your mitochondria, which makes all your energy. So vitamin B2 is responsible for 40% of your energy, and vitamin B3 is responsible. That's niacin, stuff that makes your skin tingle when you take it.
Yep.
That's responsible for the other another 40%. And all these other B vitamins, if you look at the citric acid cycle or the tricarboxylic acid cycle in your mitochondria, it's this huge big wheel of like reactions, and all these different enzymes and vitamins, and a lot of the B vitamins play a huge role in your mitochondrial energy creation.
Okay.
One thing I did find out, or I've seen some YouTube videos, I've looked into it, you really don't want to take too much vitamin B6 because like some people are taking 50 milligrams a day, but no more than 3 or 4 milligrams, because if you take high doses of B6 long term, it leads to like damaging your nerves and makes it harder for older people to walk. So you got to be careful with B6. I also saw high levels of B6 and B12 were associated with an increased risk of lung cancer, of all things. So,
well, that's interesting. I think the neuropathies that people were getting were on doses like 500 milligrams B6.
Oh yeah, maybe it was high, but
yeah,
I ran it through AI, and then I'd been taking supplements from Life Extension Foundation. The multivitamin, if you take their recommended dose, you're getting way too much B6. I sent the head of that company an email on it. He did get back to me. Probably has a huge inventory. Doesn't want to fix the problem yet. But yeah, so I've cut my B6 way back.
Okay, so let's spend just a few minutes yet before we wrap up. Let's talk about your new book. You want to give us a little bit of highlights on cancer, the cure for cancer.
Well, yeah, that's very interesting. I once did an experiment in the 90s. I was doing water restriction with rats to see if it made them live longer. And I had 8 control rats and just 2 experimental, which is kind of crazy to do, but I was so sure it was going to work. And yeah, the water restriction made, starting in a juvenile age, you didn't let them drink until they got to the point they could go 13 days without any liquids. And then I'd let them drink until they gained like 15 grams back to their original weight. They really liked that water. It was a good 15 minutes for them just drinking. But they stayed way younger than the other rats. And one of those rats, most of my rats died at 23 months. The oldest lived to 29 months. One of the water restricted rats got a tumor, and then she died at like 32 months, but looked like really young. And I had another water restricted rat that was living at 36 months. I have a video on YouTube. You can see oldest living rat in the world. At 36 months, she's hopping around, climbing out of her cage to get her hands on some celery, which has lots of water in it. She would be jumping up and down like a teenager. And she went on to live to the age of 47 months, which is way longer than the world record for that strain of rat, the Sprague-Dawley female. I checked all the caloric restriction studies that makes them live longer, and the oldest was like 32 months. And just with 2 rats, in water restriction, I got one of them to live 47 months. And I never published that, because it was kind of a messed up study as far as the control rats went. So, but one of the control rats got a big tumor, probably around 18, 19 months of age. I figured evolution would know if it's a matter of life or death, and it has to consume various tissues to keep you alive. It would know to kill off the cancer cell instead of your brain or your eyes.
Yeah.
So first started with her. I took her food away until she lost like 30% of her weight. That didn't work. It's a big golf ball sized tumor.
Oh, that's huge on a rat.
Well, I mean half a golf ball. So I mean,
okay.
yeah, I mean not it's like it was sticking out right by her arm. But yeah, so it was big. And then I cycled her with food restriction like 2 or 3 times. It didn't work. I said, I'm working with water restriction. Why don't I try that? So I gave her food and then I took her water away, and I thought I was going to take it away until she lost 30% of her weight. Within 4 or 5 days, boom, that tumor just imploded down to the size of a penny. And it stayed like that. Yeah. And then I kept cycling her with water restriction for a while, but it never got rid of that last little bit of the tumor. But it stayed in remission for the human equivalent of like 20 years. And then she finally got older and the tumor came back, and I tried water restriction again and it didn't work. All right. So then I've been finding out about high dose vitamin D3 is apparently curing cancer in a lot of cases. People taking 50,000 a day say, "Oh my, it gets rid of uterine fibroids." Turns out vitamin D3 is a hormone that controls 2,700 genes. It's not a vitamin. It's a steroid hormone, and it revs up your immune system to destroy bad actors, and it tamps down your immune system to stop attacking your good tissues. It gives your immune system a pair of glasses so it can see right. And it's been, a lot of people have been getting great results with prostate cancer. It's been curing. And another thing that vitamin D3 does is it stabilizes your DNA and reverses things that your cancer cells like deactivate DNA repair mechanisms. And the D3 goes in there and reactivates these DNA repair mechanisms, and it boosts mitochondrial energy, and it tells cancer cells either self-destruct or become normal. And so that's a second prong attack towards cancer. And then I've been following the work of Dr. Seyfried.
Yeah, Thomas.
Seyfried, who says don't eat carbohydrates because your cancer cells use carbohydrates for energy, but doesn't use protein or fat. Well, he was kind of wrong there. They also use protein, but they have very tough time with just fat. So my third prong approach to cancer is to go on an all fat diet, like just for a period, like just when you're hungry, just eat coconut oil or animal fat. You can render fat from animals, or olive oil or MCT oil. Stay on that for maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks, nothing but fat?
Yeah. Well, then, yeah, that's no problem. Your body's fine with ketones. And then your normal cells can use that for energy without a problem. And then, so I came up with a 3-prong approach where you try to go for 5 to 7 days of no water, because it turns out cancer cells, in my book, I've discovered, are reversions to ancient cellular life forms that we evolved from, like bacteria and archaea. They still are single-celled organisms. They never became multicellular, and they can live millions of years. Like they can open up salt crystals and find these old bacteria or archaea that are 100 million years old, and they come right back to life. So they don't age. They just want to divide forever, and they don't age, and they don't engage in sexual reproduction. They only clone themselves. And it turns out all multicellular life forms are kind of an accident that happened about 2.5 billion years ago. The only 2 life forms were bacteria or archaea. Archaea is like the big cell with kind of a nucleus, and bacteria are like little small animals. And at one point, the big cellular archaea engulfed a bacteria and became its brother's keeper, like it says in the Bible. And that bacteria became our mitochondria. And then the archaea is the bigger cell with the nucleus. And all multicellular life forms evolved from this single weird event 2.5 billion years ago. So there's really only 2 forms of life, bacteria and archaea, and we are just a hybrid. And it turns out these cancer cells, when they're basically just reverting back to their ancient life forms, It's like called serial atavism, where normal modern cells start to lose all these controls and they go back to the original life form that existed in oceans before there was oxygen. And so cancer cells don't need oxygen to make energy. They use fermentation. They don't use mitochondrial energy. Mitochondrial energy makes 36 ATPs from one molecule of glucose. Well, when you do fermentation outside of the mitochondria in the cellular cytoplasm, that can occur all throughout the cell. So it's like 1,000 bicycles generating energy, instead of one race car in the corner. That's the mitochondria. It's like a Ferrari. But when that stops working well, it goes back to like pedaling 1,000 bicycles. And it can only make 2 ATPs from one glucose molecule. It's very inefficient. So it needs lots of glucose to keep dividing. And it can also you can use glutamine from protein. But once you cut those two fuels off, it's got nothing to burn. So it can't burn fat hardly at all. So basically, and then the fact that they also lose their dehydration defense mechanisms. So modern land animals have been on the land for 400 million years. So we've got very sophisticated drought defense mechanisms in our normal cells. But cancer cells lose those modern mechanisms when they revert to their primitive states. So cancer cells cannot handle dehydration at all, hardly. And that explains why just 4 days of water restriction, that tumor went boom. But our normal cells can handle dehydration for long periods. So if you hit a cancer cell with no water, all fat diet, and high dose D3, boom, it just kills the cancer cells, like all of them simultaneously. And I have a video on YouTube at my channel, Jeff Bow 7777, that shows one of my pet rats recently developed this huge tumor on her stomach, and she was really old. I said, well, I didn't know if I wanted to put her through it. I said, I feel bad for her. I'm going to see if she can handle it. So I cut her water out for 7 days. I only gave her coconut oil, and I did it with the healthy rat too. There were 2 rats still living. I had six. They're the last 2 old rats. I bought them for an experiment, but I felt bad. I didn't want to inject them, so I just said, I got 6 pet rats now.
Yeah.
Because I've become a big softie.
Yeah.
So, but she got this massive tumor, almost the size of her body, hanging off her belly. And so I cut her water off for 7 days, and it didn't seem to be working. I was giving her olive oil, nothing happened. And the high dose D3, I'd mix a little water in the coconut oil with D3, so she'd start to she'd get a little water from that, but not enough to cure her dehydration. But that made her take her D3 every day. And I felt bad. It didn't do much to the tumor because it was pretty advanced. And so then I let her have water again, but I kept her on no fat for another 7 days. And I felt bad for her. And she kept getting water. And then I finally, after 2 weeks, said, this isn't working. And so I said, well, I'll just let her eat a carb-free diet. So I let her have everything but carbs, protein and fat. And then I kept her on that diet for the next 6 weeks. And all of a sudden that tumor, I started getting harder and harder. And then all of a sudden, in about week 5, the whole thing was like detaching from her body. It's like, I thought, oh my God, what's happening to her? I thought like her skin was ripping off. But it turned out her body was turning into a huge, almost boil. And a big opening opened up in her skin, and this big mass of calcified rock hard tissue was being rejected by the body.
Wow.
And then, so if you watch that, there's a video about her, and it turns out that it probably cured her cancer. So we got to get humans to try it. So if someone has cancer, they might want to do this. But actually, it kind of sucked to have all this calcified tissue inside your body. So I would revise the protocol to start off with high dose D3 to get as many cancer cells to commit apoptosis so you don't get a calcified mass. Do that for a while. And then if you want to kill off the remaining cancer cells, after a couple of weeks on high dose D3, then hit it with the dehydration and all fat diet. So there would probably be a lot fewer cancer cells, and you get much less necrosis inside your body that your body has to deal with, like calcified parts. But I'm pretty sure it cured everyone or killed all her cancer cells simultaneously.
Well, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, so that's I think it's called. Let me see what that. I can actually click on YouTube and find out the name of that video if you want to see it. Hold on.
Okay, yeah, you can say the name of your video.
Yeah,
and
I'm in the YouTube right now. Okay. I always forget the names of my titles. Yes, there's so many.
They're so long.
Yeah, a lot of them are long. I can't like. My first book title was like, and it was the whole cover. But I didn't have any marketing, so I figured I had to hook people just with the title. Okay, here we go. Your videos. This video on YouTube is titled. Here it comes. Okay, here we go. It's called Miracle Cancer Cure Works! Exclamation point. New proof, huge tumor dead in 2 months. Okay, so that's the title if you want to see it.
Okay. So what's your YouTube channel?
Oh, let's see.
What do you call it?
YouTube channel is, I think it's Jeff T. Bowles. Let me click on the channel. Then if you type in Jeff T. Bowles, and then it's got another thing that says at JeffBow 7777. So I don't know.
Okay, that's
You just type in Jeff T. Bowles.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the short name.
And you have a website?
Oh yeah, with lots of blog posts, and there's a search engine where you can type in any symptom or disease you have, and it'll come through like 1,000 different reported case studies from people who experimented with high dose D3. You can do that, or you can search for blog posts, and that's Jeff T. Bowles BOWS.com, no spaces. And that's got all sorts of fantastic information for you.
Cool.
Free of charge.
Yeah, you're a crusader. Jeff, it's been so nice discussing this with you this afternoon, and we'll get this on our respective YouTube channels so everybody can get up to date on some of the things you've been researching.
Oh, one last
thing. Okay.
Yeah. There's a whole section in my cancer book about how magnesium deficiency can drastically increase your risk of cancer.
Yeah.
If you ever get chemotherapy, it totally depletes your magnesium and makes it much easier for the cancer to come back if you don't supplement with magnesium during chemotherapy. But if you read my book, you won't need chemotherapy.
Okay.
So I hope. So, all right, that's it. Go ahead with the outro. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff, for spending this time today. And thank you for all the clinical pearls and the information we can share with our respective audiences. So good to be talking with you again, and thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. Nice to talk to you. See you again.
Okay.
Bye.